I was sitting in my daughter's driveway waiting for her to drive me to chemotherapy when I heard her voice through the open window. Why does she always need rides? She's so needy. My hands went cold, colder than they'd been since the diagnosis. I looked down at them, these hands that had worked double shifts as a nurse for 30 years, that had rocked her through colic and held her through heartbreak, that had secretly been paying her mortgage for the past 2 years. And in that moment, something inside me that had been bending finally broke. My name is Catherine Wells, and this is the story of how my daughter's cruelty during the worst chapter of my life taught me the hardest lesson about love, sacrifice, and knowing when to let go. Before I tell you what happened next, I want to know, where are you watching from? Drop your state or country in the comments. I find so much comfort knowing I'm not alone in this, and I hope my story brings you something too. Maybe validation, maybe courage, maybe just the knowledge that we're all doing our best, even when our best isn't appreciated. Now, let me take you back to where this really began. It started 3 years ago on a Tuesday morning in March. I was living in Portland, Oregon in the same house where I'd raised my daughter, Jennifer. Jenny, I'd called her all her life. The same house her father and I had bought 32 years earlier, before he passed from a heart attack when Jenny was just 15. The same house where I'd somehow managed to be both mother and father, working extra shifts at the hospital to make sure she never felt the absence of anything except him. Jenny had married Kyle 6 years prior. He was pleasant enough, a software developer with steady work and a quiet demeanor. They'd bought a house in Beaverton, about 40 minutes from mine, a modest 3-bedroom with a mortgage that, as I'd later learned through an offhand comment Jenny made, was stretching them thin. "We're house poor," she'd laughed during Sunday dinner, "but it's ours." Except it wasn't. Not entirely. 2 months after that dinner, Jenny called me crying. They were 3 months behind on their mortgage. Kyle's company had done layoffs, and while he'd kept his job, his hours had been cut. They were drowning, she said. They might lose the house. I heard the panic in her voice, that same panic I'd heard when she was 7 and thought she'd lost her favorite stuffed rabbit, when she was 16 and her prom date canceled, when she was 23 and her first serious relationship ended. "How much do you need?" I asked. "Mom, I can't ask you for that." "You're not asking. I'm offering." She told me the amount. It was substantial. My savings account could handle it, but barely. I'd been building that nest egg for retirement, for the trips I'd promised myself I'd take, for the security I'd craved since becoming a widow at 43. "I'll figure something out," I said. And I did. What I figured out was this. I would pay their mortgage anonymously through a third-party service. Jenny's pride was as fierce as mine had once been, and I knew if she realized I was making her payments month after month, she'd either refuse or feel indebted in a way that would poison our relationship. So I set up automatic transfers through a company that handles bill payments for others. To Jenny and Kyle, it looked like their mortgage was simply being paid. They assumed, and I later confirmed this through careful, casual conversations, that there'd been some kind of banking error in their favor, or perhaps a government program they'd qualified for without realizing. I know what you're thinking. That was foolish. That was enabling. And maybe you're right. But when you're a mother, particularly a mother who lost her partner and had to be everything to her child, your logic gets twisted up with love in ways that don't always make sense to outsiders. For 2 years, I paid that mortgage. $1,275 every single month. I canceled the trip to Ireland I'd been planning. I stopped eating out except for special occasions. I bought store-brand everything and wore my nursing scrubs until they were nearly threadbare. I picked up extra weekend shifts even as my body started telling me it was tired, that 62 was too old to be working 60-hour weeks. But Jenny and Kyle seemed happy. Their social media showed home improvement projects, dinners with friends, a vacation to Hawaii. I told myself I was glad that she had stability, glad that she didn't have the financial terror that had haunted my own life after her father died, glad that I could give her something soft to land on. Then came the diagnosis. It was October, a rainy Thursday that felt appropriate for bad news. Stage 2 breast cancer. Aggressive but treatable. The oncologist was optimistic. I would need surgery, then chemotherapy, then radiation. 6 months of my life handed over to fighting for more life. I told Jenny over coffee at her house. I watched her face crumple, watched her reach across the table for my hands. "Mom, what do you need? What can I do?" "Just be there," I said. "I'll need rides to treatment. I won't be able to drive myself." "Of course," she said. "Whatever you need." For the first month, she was true to her word. She drove me to pre-op appointments, held my hand through the lumpectomy, brought me soup and magazines during recovery. I started to think maybe I'd been right all along. Maybe my sacrifice had been worth it, had built this foundation of love that would hold us both up. Then chemotherapy began. The first session wasn't so bad. Jenny drove me, sat with me through the IV drip, drove me home, and helped me into bed. The second session, she seemed distracted, checked her phone constantly, seemed eager to leave. The third session, she was 20 minutes late picking me up, and I'd stood in the cold outside my house, bald from the treatment and shaking, wondering if she'd forgotten. "Sorry," she said when she finally arrived. "Traffic." But I'd checked my phone. There was no traffic. The fourth session was when everything changed. I'd texted Jenny the night before to confirm. Treatment at 10 in the morning, I'd need to be picked up by 9:15. She'd replied with a thumbs-up emoji. Just that. No words, no reassurance, just a tiny digital gesture that somehow felt like the bare minimum. That morning, I was ready early. I'd learned to dress in layers because chemo made my body temperature unpredictable, freezing 1 minute, sweating the next. I wore my favorite cardigan, the blue one Jenny had given me for my 60th birthday, back when gestures like that still felt meaningful. I'd packed my bag with water, crackers, a book I wouldn't be able to concentrate on, and the ginger candies that sometimes helped with the nausea. 9:15 came. No Jenny. 9:30. I texted. "Ready when you are." 9:45. I called. It went to voicemail. 9:50. I called again. This time Kyle answered. "Oh, hey, Catherine. Yeah, Jenny's in the shower. She'll be there soon." In the shower. At 9:50. When she was supposed to pick me up at 9:15 for a 10 o'clock appointment. "I really can't be late," I said, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. She knows. She knows. She'll hurry." She arrived at 10:20. I'd already called the clinic to say I'd be late. They'd said they'd try to fit me in, but I might have to wait. When Jenny pulled into my driveway, she didn't get out to help me. Didn't apologize. Just unlocked the doors and waited for me to climb in. "I'm sorry," I said, even though I wasn't the one who should be apologizing. "I know you're busy." "It's fine, Mom." But it wasn't fine. I could feel it in the air between us, thick and uncomfortable. We drove in silence to the clinic. She dropped me at the entrance and said she'd wait in the parking lot. "Text me when you're done." 4 hours. That's how long chemotherapy takes when you include the blood work, the waiting, the actual infusion, and the post-treatment observation. 4 hours that I sat alone, watching the poison drip into my veins that was supposed to save my life, while my daughter sat in her car in the parking lot, probably scrolling through her phone, probably texting her friends, probably wishing she was anywhere else. When I finally texted that I was done, it took her 12 minutes to come get me. 12 minutes that I stood in that clinic lobby, weak and nauseous and bald, watching other patients get picked up by family members who actually came inside, who held their arms, who looked concerned. "All done?" Jenny asked when I got in the car. "All done." "Good. I have a hair appointment at 3. A hair appointment. She had a hair appointment. And I had no hair at all. We drove back to my house in silence. When she dropped me off, she didn't help me inside, just waited until I got my keys out, then drove away before I'd even opened the door. That was Thursday. My next treatment was scheduled for 3 weeks later. The 3 weeks between treatments crawled by like wounded animals. I tried to fill them with normalcy, watching television shows I couldn't follow, attempting to read books whose words swam on the page, organizing drawers that didn't need organizing. Mostly I slept and felt sick and wondered how I'd become so alone. Jenny called once. Just checking in. How are you feeling? I'm managing, I said, because what else do you say? Good, good. I'll be there for your next appointment. Same time? Same time. The night before treatment, I barely slept, partly because of the anxiety that had become my constant companion, partly because my body had forgotten what rest felt like. At 3 a.m, I sat at my kitchen table and looked at my bank statements. The mortgage payments I'd been making for Jenny and Kyle showed there in black and white, line after line of $1,275, $30,600 over 2 years. $30,600, and she couldn't pick me up on time for chemotherapy. I closed the laptop and tried not to do the math on what that money could have meant for me now. Better doctors, perhaps. Treatments at a more prestigious hospital. A caregiver to help on the bad days. All the things I'd sacrificed so my daughter could have a house she couldn't afford. The next morning, she was late again. Only 10 minutes this time, which felt like an improvement until I realized I was grateful for crumbs. I walked outside at 9:15 anyway, unwilling to wait inside and watch the clock. The November morning was cold and gray, threatening rain, and I stood on my porch until I saw her car turn onto my street. I got in, and we drove to her house instead of the clinic. I just need to grab something, she said. 2 minutes. She parked in the driveway and left the car running, left me sitting there with the heater blasting and the radio playing some cheerful pop song that felt like an insult. She went inside through the front door, left it open behind her. I could see into their living room, the new furniture I hadn't known about, the large television on the wall, the framed pictures of their life together. Then I heard her voice. She was somewhere deeper in the house, but the windows were open. They always left their windows open, even in November, and her voice carried clearly through the morning air. Kyle, I'm serious. I can't keep doing this. His response was muffled. Every 3 weeks. She needs rides every 3 weeks, and it takes the entire morning, and she just sits there looking miserable, and She paused. I stopped breathing. Why does she always need rides? She's so needy. I know she has cancer, but my God, she could take an Uber or something. Other people manage. The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually gasped, my hand flying to my chest where my heart was hammering against my ribs. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be my daughter, my Jenny, the child I'd given everything to. But it was. Kyle's response was clearer this time. Jen, she's your mom. She has cancer. I know she has cancer, Jenny's voice rose, sharp with frustration. Everyone knows she has cancer, but I have a life too, you know? I have things to do, and I'm exhausted, and every time my phone rings, I think it's going to be her needing something else. I should have looked away. Should have closed my eyes, rolled up the windows, protected myself from hearing more, but I sat frozen, my hands in my lap while my daughter dismantled whatever was left between us. Maybe you're being a little harsh, Kyle said. You don't have to deal with it. You don't have to be the one who drops everything constantly. I'm at the end of my rope here. Footsteps. She was walking back toward the door. I stared straight ahead, my face composed, while inside everything was breaking. When she got back in the car, she smiled at me. Sorry about that. Couldn't find my phone charger. It's fine, I said. We drove to the clinic. She dropped me off. I went through the motions of treatment, the needle, the IV, the slow drip of chemicals, the hours of sitting and waiting and trying not to think. But all I could think was, $30,600. $30,600 for someone who found me needy. When treatment was over, I texted Jenny. She came to get me. She drove me home. She waited while I unlocked my door. Then she drove away, and I stood in my empty house and made a decision. That evening, I logged into my computer. My hands were steadier than they'd been in weeks. I navigated to the bill payment service I'd been using, the one that had been paying Jenny and Kyle's mortgage for the past 2 years. I looked at the scheduled payment for next week, $1,275, and I canceled it. Then I canceled all future payments. The system asked me to confirm. Are you sure you want to stop automatic payments? I clicked yes. If you're watching this, and you've ever been taken for granted, if you've ever given everything only to be called needy, then you understand what I felt in that moment. If this story is resonating with you, please subscribe to this channel. I'm sharing my truth because I know so many of you have lived something similar, and I want you to know you're not alone and you're not wrong for wanting to be valued. The confirmation email came through. Your automatic payment has been canceled. I sat there in the blue light of my computer screen, in the house I'd lived in for 32 years, and I waited to feel guilty. Waited for the mother instinct to kick in, to override my hurt and make me undo what I'd just done. But the guilt never came. Instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Free. Terrifyingly, devastatingly free. I closed my laptop, took a sleeping pill, and went to bed. Tomorrow I would deal with the consequences. Tonight, I would sleep. The first week after I stopped the payments, nothing happened. Life continued in its strange, suspended way. I went to follow-up appointments at the clinic, taking Ubers, which cost money but cost less than my dignity. I managed my side effects. I slept too much and ate too little and waited. Jenny called once. "Hey, Mom, just checking in. How are you feeling?" "About the same?" "Good. Well, not good that you feel bad, but good that you're hanging in there. Listen, Kyle and I are going to Seattle this weekend, but I'll call you when we're back, okay?" "Sure," I said. She was going to Seattle. For fun, presumably, while I was home alone fighting cancer. But that wasn't fair, I told myself. She was allowed to have a life, except that life was being subsidized by me, by the mother she found too needy. The second week, I heard nothing. I spent my days reading online forums for cancer patients, finding strange comfort in the stories of strangers who understood. I learned that what I was feeling, the rage, the betrayal, the bone-deep exhaustion, was normal. That cancer doesn't just attack your body, it reveals who people really are. One woman wrote, "When I got sick, I learned who actually loved me versus who loved the version of me that was convenient." I read that line 17 times. The third week, Jenny texted, "Can't do the next appointment, Mom. I have a work thing. Can you reschedule?" I stared at that message for a full 5 minutes. A work thing. She wanted me to reschedule chemotherapy for a work thing. I wrote back, "I'll manage. Thanks for understanding. Love you. Love you." 2 words that used to mean everything and now meant nothing at all. The fourth week, everything changed. I was sitting in my kitchen on a Tuesday afternoon, forcing down a protein shake that tasted like chalk when my phone rang. Jenny's name appeared on the screen. I almost didn't answer, but habit is stronger than hurt, so I did. "Mom?" Her voice was different, tight, panicked. "Mom, have you... She stopped, seemed to gather herself. "Did you do something with our mortgage?" My heart rate didn't even quicken. I'd been waiting for this call. "What do you mean?" "The bank called. They said our payment is overdue. They said the automatic payment that's been covering it for 2 years has stopped." "Mom, was that you?" The way she said it. Not grateful, not amazed that I'd been helping them, but accusatory, like I'd betrayed her, told me everything I needed to know. "Yes," I said simply. Silence. Then, "You've been paying our mortgage for 2 years. 2... She made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Because you would have refused, or felt obligated. I wanted to help. And now you've just stopped? Mom, we're going to lose the house. We're already 30 days late. Why would you do this?" I took a breath. "I heard you, Jenny, 3 weeks ago when I was sitting in your driveway. I heard what you said about me being needy." The silence on the other end of the phone stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Finally, she spoke, her voice small. "You heard that?" "Every word." "Mom, I was venting. I didn't mean..." "You meant it." My voice was steady, clearer than it had been in months. "And that's okay. You're entitled to your feelings, but I'm entitled to mine too, and I'm entitled to decide what I do with my money." "Your money, Mom? This isn't about money. We're going to lose our house." The house I've been paying for while you complained about driving me to chemotherapy, while you took trips to Seattle and went on vacation to Hawaii and posted pictures of your new furniture, all while thinking I was needy for asking for rides to cancer treatment. I heard her crying now. I didn't know. If I'd known you would have what? Been nicer? Pretended to care? Jenny, the reason I didn't tell you is because I wanted you to help me because you loved me, not because you felt financially obligated. I do love you. No, I said, and the word hung there, heavy and final. You love what I do for you. There's a difference. That's not fair. Mom, I've been under so much stress. Kyle's job, the house, everything. And I have cancer. I know that. Do you? I was standing now, pacing my kitchen, the phone pressed against my ear. Because from where I'm sitting, it seems like my cancer is just an inconvenience for you, something that disrupts your schedule, makes you late for hair appointments. Oh my God, are you seriously? That was one time. It was every time. Jenny, you were late to pick me up for treatment multiple times. You dropped me off and waited in the car rather than come inside with me. You answered your phone during the one appointment you actually attended. My voice cracked. You called me needy for having cancer and needing help. She was sobbing now, full broken sobs that once would have shattered me. Mom, please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was horrible and I know that and I'll do better. I promise I'll do better. But please, we can't lose this house. We'll be homeless. Please. You won't be homeless. You'll figure something out, the same way I figured out how to raise you alone after your father died. The same way I figured out how to pay for your college when the scholarships didn't cover everything. The same way I figured out how to help you with this house without you even knowing. You're resourceful when you need to be. So that's it? Her voice turned hard. You're just going to let us lose everything? I'm going to let you handle your own responsibilities. Yes. After everything we've... She stopped herself. After everything you've what? Done for me? I laughed and it came out bitter. Please finish that sentence. I'd love to hear it. She didn't finish it. Instead, she said, I need to go, and hung up. I set the phone down on the counter and waited for the guilt to come. Waited for the mother in me to override everything and make me call her back, make me fix this. But I didn't call back. And for the first time in 2 years, I didn't make a mortgage payment either. The next few days passed in a strange quiet. Jenny didn't call. I didn't call her. The silence between us felt like a physical thing, heavy and immovable, filling up all the space where our relationship used to be. I went to my next chemotherapy session in an Uber. The driver was kind, a woman about my age who saw me climb in with my chemo bag and said, "Fighting the good fight, I see." We talked about her sister who'd had breast cancer 5 years ago and was now in remission. It was a better conversation than I'd had with my daughter in months. 4 days after our phone call, Kyle called me. Not Jenny. Kyle. Catherine, He cleared his throat. I need to talk to you. All right. Jenny told me everything. About the mortgage, about what she said, about all of it. He paused. I'm calling to apologize. On behalf of both of us, but especially for Jenny. She's not handling this well. Which part? The cancer or the consequences? That's fair, he said quietly. Both, probably. Look, I don't know if this matters, but I didn't know you were paying our mortgage. Jenny only told me about it after the bank called, and I didn't know she'd been... He struggled for words. I didn't know she'd been treating you poorly during your treatment. If I had, I would have driven you myself. Would you have? I wasn't being sarcastic. I genuinely wanted to know. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Catherine, you've always been good to us. To me. When Jenny and I got married and my own parents barely showed up because they didn't approve, you welcomed me like I was your son. You've never been anything but kind and generous, and Jenny, his voice broke. Jenny's been taking that for granted. We both have, but especially her. I felt something loosen in my chest. Not forgiveness exactly, but acknowledgement. Thank you for saying that, Kyle. The thing is, he continued, we're in real trouble here. The bank is starting foreclosure proceedings. We've tried to catch up, but we don't have $3,800 just lying around. And with my reduced hours," he took a breath, "I'm not calling to ask you to pay again. I know we don't deserve that. I'm just calling to say I'm sorry, and that Jenny's sorry, even if she's too proud or too ashamed to call and say it herself." "She could call," I said. "She has my number." "I know. I've told her that. She's complicated right now. Scared and ashamed and angry, all mixed up together. I've been scared too. I'm still scared. I'm scared every single day that I'm going to die from this disease, but I still manage to be a decent person." "You're right. You're absolutely right." He sighed. "I don't know what's going to happen with the house. We're meeting with a lawyer next week to see what our options are. But whatever happens, I want you to know that I understand why you stopped paying, and I don't blame you." "Does Jenny understand?" A long pause. "I think she's starting to." We hung up shortly after. I sat with that conversation for a while, turning it over in my mind. 2 weeks later, I was in my living room when someone knocked on my door. It was barely 7 in the morning, and I was having one of my bad days, the kind where even getting out of bed felt like climbing a mountain. I almost didn't answer, but the knocking continued, persistent and desperate. I opened the door to find Jenny standing there. She looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, her hair unwashed and pulled into a messy bun, wearing sweatpants and an old jacket I recognized from high school. She'd been crying, her face red and blotchy, and when she saw me, bald and thin in my bathrobe, she started crying again. "Mom," she whispered, "I didn't invite her in. I just stood there, holding the door, waiting." "I'm sorry." The words came out broken. "I'm so sorry. You were dying and I was annoyed. You needed help and I called you needy. You were paying our mortgage, Mom, for 2 years, and I didn't even know, and I was complaining about driving you to treatment." She was sobbing now, words tumbling over each other. What kind of person does that? What kind of daughter does that? I've been asking myself the same question. She flinched like I'd struck her. "I deserve that. I deserve worse than that. Mom, I don't have any excuse. I was selfish and horrible, and I took you for granted, and I'm—" She struggled for breath. "I'm so ashamed I can barely look at you." "Then why are you here?" "Because you're my mom." She looked up at me, her face raw with pain. "Because I'm losing my house, and that's my own fault, and I'm scared and I don't know what to do, but mostly because I realized that I could lose my house and survive. But if I lose you, if you die and the last real conversation we had was me calling you needy, I'll never survive that." Something in my chest cracked open. Not forgiveness, not yet, but recognition. The recognition that she was finally, truly seeing what she'd done. "We're losing the house next week," she continued. "The bank's foreclosing. We're going to move in with Kyle's brother in Tacoma temporarily while we figure things out. It's going to be awful and humiliating, and we deserve every bit of it. But before we go, I needed to see you. I needed to tell you that I love you, and I'm sorry, and I understand if you never forgive me." I looked at my daughter, this person I'd made, who I'd raised, who I'd sacrificed everything for, and I saw her clearly for the first time in years. Not as the child I'd idealized, not as the grateful recipient of my love I'd hoped she'd be, but as a flawed human being who'd hurt me deeply and was finally understanding what that meant. "I don't know if I forgive you," I said honestly, "but I don't hate you either. That's more than I deserve." "Yes," I agreed. "It is." She nodded, accepting this, and turned to leave. Then she paused. "Mom? Would it be okay if I drove you to your next treatment if you still need rides?" I thought about it, really thought about it. "We'll see," I said. "Ask me again next week." That conversation was 3 months ago. A lot has changed since then. Jenny did drive me to my next treatment, and the one after that, and all the ones that followed until I finished chemotherapy 6 weeks ago. She came inside with me. She held my hand during the IV insertion. She brought me ginger ale and sat with me through the worst of it. She never once checked her phone. They lost the house, just as Kyle said they would. The foreclosure went through, and they moved to Tacoma. It's been hard on them. Cramped quarters with Kyle's brother, a longer commute for Kyle's work, the shame of explaining to friends what happened. Jenny got a second job waitressing on weekends to help them save for a new place. We talk now, really talk. Not the surface-level chit-chat we used to do, but real conversations about hard things, about how she'd felt overwhelmed by my illness and hadn't known how to handle it, about how she'd been avoiding dealing with their financial problems by pretending they didn't exist, about how easy it is to take people for granted when you've never had to live without them, and about how I'd been enabling her maybe by always fixing everything, by never letting her struggle or learn or grow, by paying her mortgage secretly instead of having an honest conversation about what help I could actually afford to give. We're rebuilding. Slowly. Some days are better than others. Some days I look at her and still feel the echo of that hurt, still hear her words through the open window. But other days I see glimpses of something new between us. A relationship built on honesty instead of obligation, on mutual respect instead of one-sided sacrifice. My last cancer scan came back clear. The doctors say the prognosis is good. I'm in remission. And while that word still feels fragile, like something that could break if I breathe on it too hard, it's also the most beautiful word I've ever heard. I'm using what's left of my savings, the money I'm no longer spending on someone else's mortgage, to take that trip to Ireland I'd postponed. Jenny's response when I told her was simply, "Good, you deserve it. No guilt, no manipulation, just genuine happiness for me." I've learned something through all of this, something I wish I'd learned 30 years ago. Loving someone doesn't mean sacrificing yourself until there's nothing left. It doesn't mean accepting mistreatment or being grateful for crumbs. Real love, the kind worth having, requires honesty and boundaries and sometimes painful conversations that feel like they might break everything but actually make space for something stronger. My relationship with my daughter will never be what it was. That version where I gave everything and she took it without thinking is gone. But maybe that's okay. Maybe what we're building now, this harder, more honest thing, is what we should have had all along. I survived cancer, and in the process, I learned to survive something else too. The death of who I thought I had to be as a mother, and the birth of who I actually am. Someone worthy of respect, someone whose needs matter, someone who deserves better than being called needy for fighting to stay alive. That's my story. And if it resonated with you, I hope it gave you permission to value yourself too.